5:30, so I'll call the meeting to order, and can we have a roll call, please?
Goody?
Yes.
Hess?
Here.
Chops?
Here.
Punkala?
Here.
Gregor?
Here. All right, can we stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, moving on with our agenda. Agenda item 4 is the consent agenda. It's the process by which we as a council can approve in bulk, essentially. A number of business items that are listed on our agenda are available to the public if they wanted to scrutinize them. And generally what I would do is ask, are there any items that any councilor would like pulled from the consent agenda for separate discussion? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Councilor Goss. Support. Councilor Godey is supporting it. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda then is adopted. See either city administrator or the county clerk there. Do we have any individuals who wanted or gave notice of wanting to appear? And any of our two members of the community in the audience want to address the council at this time for any reason?
Yeah, there's one question I was thinking about the St. James grant. You got $2.5 million.
Yes.
I was wondering, I mean, $2.5 million is quite a bit of money. Is that all for drilling or for engineer fees?
I'll defer to the city administrator. I
Yep,
think.
so that was given to the DNR, and when I reached out to the DNR about that, I asked specifically the same thing, which that's a lot of money. Is that construction and a bridge or pumping station? And from their work with the Canasteo mine pit, they're using that as the benchmark, and that's just for design. That's just for the engineering, for them to come up with it for the design. Yeah.
Okay, but another, I was wondering about this, but they do have a grant, and the money is not all spent. Where does the money go?
I believe that piece of legislation, at least before it was voted on by the legislature, had in it a transfer provision that if the money wasn't all spent for that, it would go into the Joint East Range Water Project financing. Do you recall?
I was not here for that, so I'd have to look into it.
All right, but I don't know if that survived the final adoption process, but that was in the minds, all of us being familiar with any state agency, though I have to bring at least a little bit heightened degree of skepticism there's going to be any money left. But
Also on that, Butch, for you and the mayor, council, and the public, there is an LCCMR grant the city received for about $300,000, and it was a preliminary study. They did modeling. They did bore some holes, they did some wells out there. That is just about done. They've got some preliminary results, and we are going to have a public meeting on that, and that's something you will be interested in. The science of where they think it's going to level out at, and they're using that pre-study to kind of determine where they're going to stick all of their eggs in that $2.5 million to figure out what to do with that. Yep, so that'll probably be this fall yet, so I'll track you down, but we'll post it too.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
I assume that concludes your questions? Yep. Okay. All right, if no further questions, then we can move on to agenda item 11, which is reports from staff members. Start with the city administrator.
I'll move on to city engineer and attorney in order to give theirs, or mine's just what we'll take care of on the agenda.
Sure. I think the big news to report is the parking lot for Pine Grove Park. Construction started last week. They made very good progress. So they stripped the topsoil, got down to the proposed subgrade, and now have put the gravel up to the top of, we call it grading grade. And so basically the next lift to go on would be the pavement. They did find some wetter soils than we were anticipating. We worked with the contractor to come up with a plan to manage them. We did not cover poor soils. We worked them and dried them with the good weather we had. But in discussions with city administrator, looking at paving it in 2024 instead of this fall, just to help relieve some of that poor pressure in the soil, let some of that settlement occur in our storm trench. Ultimately, we'd still push to have it paved by Memorial Day, so it'd still be usable when the splash pad opens and all of that. So I would anticipate they'd still stabilize everything, get everything cleaned up. We'd have a nice solid gravel surface to park
That's
on.
actually good, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
So a lot of times on our street projects, we'll leave that last lift of pavement just so things can settle around trenches and stuff like that. So then when we come to put the top layer on, we have a nice smooth.
By Wabik might have
Yes.
been well advised.
Yes. So we've had that discussion a couple of times. Is we don't want the lobby. We have a good section. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
sorry.
I had a question, and I was down there, and I was looking at the south parking lot, not the one we're working on, and there in the middle are just incredibly decrepit portions there. Is there any way, without going into all the underlayment and all that, to combine with what's going to be done on the new parking lot with just kind of asphalting of those deteriorated areas?
Good question. We could discuss like a patch or something like that to create that.
Does anyone else?
Well, the park plan has several different items placed in that parking lot, so I don't know how much money you want to put into a location such as if Caring for Kids, when Caring for Kids raises the amount for the motion pad skate park, that will be placed down there.
Yeah.
So I don't know how
So
much you
just be
want
a
to
patch.
put into.
Yeah.
That would be my recommendation. So we had the gravel trucks use that south lot to access, just trying to protect the baseball field entrance. That's a good pavement. I don't want to tear that up. The south lot is in pretty poor shape. It's probably just was paved over the dirt back in the day, and so we could do a patch to clean it up, or we could look at just doing gravel to.
Well, I think Councilor Honkel is, if it's going to be substantially reworked in the future, we'll want to put a lot, but right at the moment, it looked like you could lose part of a car down.
Maybe, yes, for sure. So,
Yeah. I'm sorry I interrupted.
no, you're good. You're good. So that would be the plan. There'd be no additional costs waiting to pave. Like I said, we'd allow the soils to kind of settle in, and the goal is to have it open by Memorial Day. So we'd have to issue a change order to get contractually official, but shouldn't be a problem. That's probably the big update as far as engineering goes.
Thank you. City Attorney?
Yeah, a few things. The Zinski real estate sale got completed, got the documents off with Luke today. On the other one, the Lauder estate, we were in court on Monday. The judge will sign the document as soon as, a month ago, we contacted the county for, get a medical assistance and M&A certificate of compliance. We haven't received that from the county, so we're waiting for that. Once we get that clearance, we'll get it with the court, and the judge will sign off on that one. Working on the shearing project to get that done before the end of the year. And that's all I've got at this time. If there was a medical assistance lien on that, I would contact the county because there's really not much value in that property. And then we would ask that they waive the medical assistance lien. So either way, I think it's going to be done, but it's always better to get a certificate of clearance. That's all I've got at this time.
Thank you. It's not often we get an attorney report, so I appreciate it very much.
Luke told me I better say something.
All right, well, good. Pressure there. Let's see, I believe we're to the city administrator. Or do you wanna
Yep, so
make a
I just do want to take a moment to note that Vic Lund is here. He's an engineer for St. Louis County, and he's got new business 17.1 on the agenda today. So he'll be giving a presentation if you can hang on a little bit longer, Vic. Okay, so he'll be giving his presentation on that then. Other than that, that's all I have with tonight.
All right. Let's see, moving on with the agenda then, report from counselors, and I believe Counselor Godey is our junior member, is that correct?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I'll keep it short tonight. First of all, just for the public, most of the people here are aware that we've received, the HRA received correspondence that they're not going to continue with the grocery store, but at this time, they're still trying to just dot all the i's and cross all the t's to make sure that it's all free and clear for us to move forward whatever we can find for the next project. And then I just wanted to remind the public, the Pumpkin Fest is coming up this in a week and or 2 weekends from now. Go there and have some fun and support the vendors and go to the library. It sounds like they have a lot of stuff. So that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Councilor Godey. Councilor Hess.
I don't have too much. Luke and I attended the Tri-City Ambulance meeting. We'll have something on that later in our agenda. The only other item I got is the pickleball court is open on Monday. I think what I want to do, I want to put an end to some rumors that are out there that the city's got money in it. The city has no dollars in that pickleball court. 40% of it's grant money that come from their grant writing. 60% of the money come from citizens of this town and former citizens of this town. So the only city,
Good point to make clear to the audience. Yes.
the only thing the city had, they used their water truck from the fire department to hose it off, and they used a line truck to set the post. That's two in-kind things that the city did. Otherwise, there's absolutely no taxpayers' dollars in that court. So
We did contribute the property though for.
Right, but I mean,
But other than cash investments,
right, everybody's thinking that it was city dollars that was used, and it isn't city dollars.
right, good, excellent point.
They had 40-some players yesterday, and they must have about that many today.
Yeah. And I was out there, and John Baxter, I had me batting a few balls, and I must say that age has taken its toll on my eye-hand coordination. But it was good to see folks out there playing. Yeah. So anything further, Councilor? Councilor Goss?
I don't have much to report. We had a planning and zoning meeting. Things are slowing down for obvious reasons. So we went back to our Rams meeting we had our first Rams meeting of this fall, so we had some interesting speakers and just kind of getting into the swing of things again. And I am really excited for the Pumpkin Fest not this coming weekend, the following weekend. The town's starting to look great, so hats off to Celebrate Aurora. So that's it.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor McLaughlin.
Just echo what Dan and Norma Jean spoke about the Oktoberfest, and thank you to Celebrate Aurora for all the time they put into it. They had a nice ad in East Range Shopper. Thanks to the fire department for opening up their facilities to allow some of the games to happen. The parking lot, I have a question regarding that parking lot at Pine Grove Fordyce Field. So if it's meant to be paved in May, has the school been made aware that that field won't be accessible for their players, for their summer female softball players?
That'll have to be something we coordinate. So the original plan calls to tear into that road down to the field.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna hold off on that until next spring. So
Next spring, so that will be that time where the female soft players will be.
Yep. So
But
that'll
they
be,
do have the football field as their home field, so they always have that option.
got it.
And I do believe it's only, once they tear into it, they've only got like a period of 7 days.
So they're gonna have the paving left. They'll come in, tear that out one day, pave everything the next, and they'll be out. So I mean, it would be a 1 day inconvenience probably on that driveway.
Okay.
So we'll be able to coordinate that around a ball game, I'm sure. So
Okay, we like to accommodate our female athletes.
100%.
Yeah. So and then I have a question regarding the pickleball. Maybe Richard or Luke, you can answer this. Is there a bathroom there currently to accommodate the players?
Oh, that's something that we're going to talk about,
Okay.
putting maybe a satellite there.
There or something, and then the city would arrange for. Do they take the satellite out in the winter? I assume. Okay.
Yep.
So it'd be summer months only. Okay. Yeah.
I think pickleball is particularly difficult in the winter too.
You don't think that would happen, but when you gotta go, I don't know. And then just a shout out to the Aurora Chamber of Commerce. You know, it came in front of us a couple months ago. They do have their holiday heritage scheduled for December 15th and 16th, something to look forward to. They're just beginning stages of planning, and there's some new stuff coming down the pipeline, so that's exciting.
When is it, December 15th and 16th?
16th, correct. And then the Aurora Fire Department has their Santa run on the 15th, which is a Friday. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Let's see, a lot of outside board matters to report on. The East Range Water Board, the project where we left off last time was the bids were coming in from the original solicitation. Only one bid was received. It was way beyond any estimates or available funds, so the Water Board met last month on the 20th and rejected that bid. And based on the advice and consultation with some other contractors, a decision was made to go back out for bids, this time with a revised solicitation proposal, which would break the project into 3 separate components, which the contractors indicated would help them both in terms of expertise, availability, and bonding requirements to enable them to bid. So that new bid deadline is going to be Monday, November 6th, and at that time, we're hopeful we'll have a collective bids to consider that would be more within the project budget on that. I've always said that failure is not an option on this project given the state of our water project, so we're hoping that it will be good news. East Range Joint Powers Board, we got reports from our Norseman consultants. Jeff Burgess, I'm sorry, confused the two, from the school indicated, I think the public would be interested, sort of enhanced early child care facilities for 3-year-olds that are available through the school there. We also got a chance to meet 2 new representatives of the new Range Copper team, Simon Charter and Claire Sebald. And one of the things they notified us was there were 45 employees, or 48 employees actually employed already, notwithstanding the court battles and so on. They seem to be optimistic going ahead. We, in our comments from the communities, it was announced that White Lakes was doing a 12% levy, and Town of White was doing an 8% levy as their preliminary levy amounts. So we have that for comparison. And there are monies available through the North Band Advisors by virtue of a grant they got to help local food distribution and development facilities, not just the greenhouse, if the community comes together by December with some kind of a proposal. And they have $300,000 to spend in this region. So that might be something to think about, particularly in light of what Councilor Godey indicated, the grocery store project is not going forward. One additional item in that, I believe the HRA is going to try to negotiate to get the architectural plans, right?
Right.
Yeah, that were developed for that. Celebrate Aurora, in addition to the pumpkin fest coming up, has purchased a food, they conducted a food truck event in Virginia, which was financially very helpful to the organization's coffers, but then they purchased a stage, a performing stage, like we've seen before between Rudy's and the post office there, that's used for a lot of our community celebrations. They will now own it. There's a devoted group of volunteers rebuilding it. I know Councilor Hassey expressed some skepticism about it at the last meeting. They apparently feel that it has a new life. So anyway, that's going on there. Josh and I appeared before the Legislative Bonding Committee on September 27th in Virginia, asking for $3 million for the First Avenue North project proposal. And I guess the biggest obstacle was we we're under extreme threats to confine our remarks to a very brief period of time. And, anyway, CAP meeting, I got an update on how Alaskan Energy and our other production facilities from North Minnesota Power fit into the regional grid. It was really fascinating how all that is bartered in almost real time, given the alternative energy sources and so on. And Alaskan is faring well in that environment. Range mayors meeting, the only thing I wanted to add was there was some discussion, common discussion there about the ambulance service and how everyone is experiencing the same sort of difficulties there. And the Tower mayor commented, and I think some of the other mayors echoed, they're working with Senator Roshold out of Duluth on a potential statewide greater Minnesota relief plan that might help us out. So as we consider the matter later on the agenda. And then just kind of I'm still pledging a snapshot edition out, if possible, before Pumpkin Fest, and depending on Councilor Huckle's availability, I think that assumes a new priority. There's so many things happening, and I've talked with the city administrator. Since the last issue, it's remarkable what our city's done. So that's the mayor's report. Sorry to
Here,
take
I got one question. Number one is, what is the target levy for Aurora?
The target levy that we adopted as a preliminary levy was 5%.
And then another question is, polymet is now known as what?
New range copper.
New range copper. Oh, that's unclarified.
Okay. Let's see. Let's see. Moving ahead then to old business. 16.1 is resolution 2023-36, the street assessment policy. Is that still for our consideration?
Yeah, and actually, we're ready to go ahead with this tonight. I'm glad Josh is here, because him and I have both put our 2 cents into it, and let you know, basically, essentially what this is covering is shared sewer laterals if they're discovered on First Avenue or any other home in town. Who's going to be responsible for taking care of that? We did have it in the last one. Wanted to make sure both the attorney and Josh were here, but we're ready for you guys to move forward with that. If you have any questions, let us know.
I didn't have anything in my packet.
Yeah, it's not in here.
Well, it was in the previous packet. So,
I think the 19th,
yes. Yep.
Well, I'm assuming
It's not something that needs to be done now. We can definitely table it till the 17th.
maybe procedure would dictate that we have at least the matter before us. So is there a motion to table?
Make a motion to table till 17th.
Supported?
I'll support
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's tabled. And moving on to 16.2, Resolution 2023-40, point of sale ordinance, the materials for which, and the proposed resolution for which are in our packet. City Administrator?
Oh, okay, hold on here. So, let me check my packet here.
Well, he's looking for that. I thought it was particularly helpful that Lindsay highlighted in yellow the provisions that are being changed in the existing ordinance, so that...
Yep, so I'm sorry, this is the one that we're actually voting on tonight, is the point of sale ordinance. So that is the one that is the assessment policy we're not ready for.
All right.
So this one we're good to go.
Yeah, interesting problem where there's shared connections. I'm sure that raises things. Councilors, to get it matter on the table, is there a motion to approve the proposed resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Moved. Support?
I'll support it.
Supported by Councilor Jones. All right, for discussion now. Do any of the councilors have questions?
I don't really have a question, I have more of a comment from our community. Some of this policy is well received, and some other citizens aren't very happy with having to have inspections and with this process. Norma Jean, you know, you've heard it as well.
Yeah. I mean, the way you look at it is when you buy a house, you want to make sure that you have a good place. I mean, you want to have a good roof, you want to have a good furnace, and you want to make sure the toilet's working. You have to do it in the country. Why wouldn't we have to do that for in town as well? I mean, it would be horrible if you bought a house and you find out you have to pay somebody to do a sewer lateral replacement because your sewer line is a mess. I mean, and our sewer lines in town are,
They're a mess.
They're old.
Almost every single house that
they're a
you
mess.
watch sell, next thing, they're plowing
Yep.
into the dirt to get to
Yep.
those pipes. So almost every house that sells, they're anticipating that.
Notice that in the neighborhood.
Yep.
But on the other hand, no buyer is foisting upon, or seller is foisting upon a buyer a problem that, as Councilor Jost pointed out, isn't going to go away whether you disclose it or not. It's real.
Right.
So,
I mean, I understand you get upset, but I mean, you'd be upset if you bought something and it wasn't
Yep.
working. So,
yep.
Just for that.
It does help with our I&I problem too, with the wastewater plant, which is significant.
yeah.
So it's every little bit helps.
Just wanted to voice their concerns.
And with this sewer lateral line stuff that's happening, Luke, and just something I want to, when we start doing all these roads, these redo of the roads, are we going to let people along the main trunks or where the new road is going in, are we going to let them know that that would be the time to have a sewer lateral line check? I mean, the road's opened up, it's all right there, and the option to, hey, we've got everything there, maybe they could have it done at that point.
You know,
I mean, it would be ideal.
Yeah, and a lot of things, especially if we're doing assessments, we have to have public meetings, and I'll defer to Josh and some of this too, but the public meetings is a good time to let people know a year ahead of time, or 2 years ahead of time, hey, we're coming in, this is what we're doing. There are contractors that can take care of this, because they do, in Aurora, you do own from your house to the main. It's your
Yep.
responsibility, so.
Yep.
Are there advantages, not being that familiar with the construction, to follow up with Councilor Jost, if they're trenching, say, in the main street and thereby exposing the laterals, is there some advantage about the ability to replace them or to drill an alternative one if the trench is open?
So, and I'll let Josh take this, because the street is open, so I believe they do to the right of way.
Yep, so we would replace the service lateral to the right-of-way essentially. Usually we wouldn't go beyond that unless we knew. I don't like to include that stuff with the contract because it creates additional risk for the city when you start working on private property. It would not be uncommon for the contractor to work out a private agreement
Yep.
with that homeowner to go to the foundation and complete the rest of that
Yep.
service.
So maybe we could facilitate that discussion anyway.
I mean, that would be, I know that other cities have done that. So, I mean, everything's opened up. They're right there. You'd probably get a better deal.
100% you do.
Yeah,
They're never
because
gonna
it's-
get a
yeah.
better deal.
Yep, because I mean, I've seen the sewer lateral line replacements run as high as $15,000. So,
And why we'd want to stay off, I mean, that laterals go under decks and
Yep.
fences, and I mean, it just opens up Pandora's box when we get right away.
A lot of the water lines will be forced to be replaced because of lead and copper.
Yep.
So, you're talking about sewer right now, but water is also done to the right of way, but we have put in for funding for this First Avenue project for lead and copper line.
The advantage with water though is pressure, so you can drill it from
Yeah.
the right of way to the foundation. You don't have to rip up the yard, and they can shoot it through the foundation usually too, and so that way there's no restrictions.
okay.
So the takeaway is a heads up to property owners or business owners
Yes.
along 3rd Avenue and Main
Yeah.
Street.
And wherever
Uh,
we're doing wherever we're opening up streets, I think that that's something we gotta let the property owners know.
Right.
Just,
All right, I believe we have a
Sorry.
motion on the table for approval of a revised point of sale ordinance. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance is adopted for resolution. Moving into new business, excuse me, 17.1 is resolution 2023-39, the Rice Lake Road Corridor Project. Sort of a word of support, right, City Administrator, for that project?
Yep, so I'm going to turn this over to Vic, and St. Louis County, and you can talk about what this is all about.
All right, thank you, Luke, thank you, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Council.
I'm Vic Lund, I'm the traffic engineer for St. Louis County, and happy that you allowed me to come up here tonight. I know that I'm probably between you and supper, so I will keep my comments as short as possible. I have a longer drive, so that's okay. So this is a strange request. Normally when we ask for resolutions of support, we're working on a project within your city. But this one's unique. We're asking for a resolution of support for a funding application that we're doing for the Rice Lake Road Corridor project down in the city of Rice Lake and the city of Duluth. And the reason for that is it really comes down to the transportation network. We're going to be requesting some funds for this project through what's called the RAISE grant, R-A-I-S-E. It's part of the current transportation law that we're operating underneath at the federal level, so the IIJA, the Investment in Infrastructure and Jobs Act, or the BIL, some folks call it, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. But under that law that was adopted by Congress in, I think it was November 2021, it truly is record funding opportunities for transportation agencies across the country. The biggest change with this legislation is that a lot of the funds are now available directly to local agencies, whereas before it was state DOTs were the only recipients that were eligible. So now St. Louis County and City of Aurora, White Township could actually be eligible applicants for these funding programs. Now, just to be clear, they're very competitive, and so what we're going through with this process of submitting a funding application for the Rice Lake Road project, I'll mention this in a second, but it's been many years in the work. I actually first started working on this project technically back in 2012 with an intersection study at the intersection of Rice Lake and Martin Road. And from that, about 2015, the city was then the town of Rice Lake. Rice Lake Township then became a city of Rice Lake. And so that was about 2015. About 2018, St. Louis County started receiving requests for driveway access along Rice Lake Road. So let me just set the stage where we are. I apologize I didn't do that. If you're familiar with, if you're taking Highway 4 down Vermillion Trail down to Duluth, the intersection of Rice Lake and Martin, so Boomtown is down the corner, the new Quick Trip. That's kind of the epicenter of the project. So in that corridor, about a half mile to the north and about a mile to the south, and also along Martin Road is approximately where the project is located. So we started receiving some driveway permit applications, and so this is interesting history. It's one of the only county roads in the county that's considered, and of course my mind just died, controlled access. Controlled access. What that means is that the county owns the right of way, and the county owns the rights to access on that road. And the reason for it is if you drive along Rice Lake Road, you've probably seen those frontage roads along Rice Lake Road, and you're like, what is that for? Well, that was the original Rice Lake Road prior to the 1970s. And so in the early 1970s, the county reconstructed that corridor to what it is today. And of course, I would say that the county board at the time was very foresightful in that they wanted to protect the public investment. And here's what the investment is. Rice Lake Road is a minor arterial. That means its purpose and function is to move a lot of traffic with a little bit of access. Instead of the road that you probably live on, the road I live on, which its purpose is to get to my house, not necessarily move traffic. Rice Lake Road's purpose is to move traffic, which means as we add access, we reduce capacity, we increase the chance for crashes. It just becomes much more problematic. I always point to the poster child of Central Entrance in Duluth, you're heading down towards the Copper Top Church, and all of those driveway points, right? That's called access management gone awry. So we don't want to end up with that. So today, the road is at capacity for the number of driveways. And that really got us into this conversation with the city of Rice Lake saying, we got to think about doing a project. Not only from the sense of there's obviously pent-up demand for development, but also from a traffic operation perspective. The corridors, particularly during about 2 to 3 hours of the day during the peak hours, is experiencing lots of delay because there's lots of traffic trying to feed through that corridor. Think of it, it's feeding all the northern townships up Duluth. That's the commuter route into the city of Duluth. And then the city of Rice Lake in 2020 adopted its first comp plan, or its land zoning plan essentially.
and identified Rice Lake Road as the commercial corridor. And so Rice Lake is a new city, which means it doesn't have a typical or traditional downtown like Aurora does. And Aurora, McKinley, Hibbing, Chisholm, they all have these traditional downtown corridors. And you got the residential neighborhood, whereas Rice Lake is a township, which means it's mostly just a residential jurisdiction. And so their point is they want to create the downtown of Rice Lake on Rice Lake Road. So in order to support that vision, this is a long-term effort here. This isn't going to be overnight. We have to think about reconstructing the roadway to accommodate that. Now back to an earlier point I made from the transportation network significance. Rice Lake Road and Vermilion Trail, which is County Stated Highway 4, is the primary access to the East Range. And obviously 53 is the main feeder route, but I live kind of in the Pike Lake area, and it's actually faster for me to get here on Vermilion Trail than it is to take 53. So the point is that from the transportation network's perspective, Rice Lake Road and Vermilion Trail is a regionally significant corridor. That feeds back into our funding application for the RACE grant. We need to demonstrate that not only are the communities within the project are supportive of the project, but we're also demonstrating that the road is a regionally significant corridor. And to do that, we're asking for support from the East Range cities. So I've already received support from the City of White Lakes. I have a meeting with the Babbitt City Council, I believe, in 2 weeks. I'll be meeting with those folks. I've reached out to City McKinley, City by Wabac. I've not heard back yet from those folks. But at the end of the day, I'm just simply asking for that resolution support. I'm going to be working with the townships that ring Duluth and Hermantown. I'm going to be asking for their support. Obviously, City of Rice Lake, City of Duluth. I'll be looking for support for the East Range cities for that funding application. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that what happens down there is going to be supportive of the transportation network regionally, so that we're also making sure that the corridor between Duluth and the Range, it's the big picture. We're not just going to be focused on letting this particular thing degrade or go in the wrong direction. We want to make it a regional corridor that's maintained well in the future. So I'll open up for any questions. Very high level.
Any questions of Mr. Lynn?
So if they're going to have a traditional city or some kind of,
Yep.
will that slow down our ability to get from here to Essentia? Or will you have that off the side so that maintains?
Yep. So as it stands today, if the city realizes its vision as adopted by its comp plan and nothing happens to the road, you're going to see a significant deterioration in the travel time through that corridor. So if we do nothing, it's only going to get significantly worse from a travel or traffic standpoint. So that's why we're promoting this reconstruction project, is so that it's like my example. Well, if I had a milk truck here, this only has 32 ounces of capacity. The road today, let's say, is 32 ounces of capacity. But if I had a milk jug here, I want to make it a 1 gallon capacity road pipe. So today I can only put this much traffic through it. I want to be able to put a gallon of traffic through it. That's why we want to do the project, because, like I said, it's a regionally significant corridor. We don't want it to have any degradation to it, so we can get that traffic through the community. But also we want to support the community in their vision. So it's kind of this. In traffic, there's always this tension, right, between, I want to get access to my business, I want to get access to my house, but I also want to get through real fast. Mm-hmm. That's the tension.
I'm sensing a political issue as much as an engineering issue in terms of, would one of the alternatives with this funding be to accommodate Rice Lake's desires by some sort of a frontage road, which therefore would control how much access came onto the road?
We're planning a city street connector, we're calling it, parallel Rice Lake Road that will connect West Calvary to Martin on the east side of Quick Trip. So if you're out driving north, there's Quick Trip. Yeah. If you look past Quick Trip, there would be a city street that would be constructed, and that would help support the primary interest of development is between Quick Trip and Boomtown. So that's why we're looking at that city street as part of the project. It would be a brand new road so that we can get access to that additional development.
Just one last personal request.
Yes.
While you're doing all this, if you could improve the cell service consistently
yes.
for, I think we'd all be
For sure.
grateful.
For sure, yeah. And I apologize, I'm just going to quick also mention this to Luke. I don't know if you'd like me to. I'd be happy to talk about the Casal 100 just very briefly if you'd like.
Sure.
So St. Louis County, just bring up to speed, we're planning the reconstruction project of Casal 100, 3rd Avenue North, Main Street in 2026. We received, the county was a recipient of $3 million in a legislative earmark for that project that can be used towards anything, design, planning, right-of-way construction. Typically, we take those dollars and we reserve those for the construction. So 2026 is the year, but those funds have to be encumbered by June 30th of 2027, which means we got to construct in 2026. At the end of the day, the county's going to deliver. We're not going to put egg on our face and ask for money that we can't deliver. But with that, I just actually started, I put it's called a request for proposal, RFP. I've got it in about 95% draft form right now. So I'm going to be sending that out to some engineering consultants here in the next week or two. We're going to be soliciting and bringing a consultant on board for St. Louis County to work through what we're calling a corridor layout process. So this is going to be an opportunity for the city to provide, and the community to provide some input that we're genuinely asking for into what the new corridor is going to look like. So the project begins close to Highway 135. It ends down at Highway 110. So that entire corridor, and then we're also going to have some special focus on the intersection here in downtown, Main Street, and 3rd Avenue. That'll be part of that discussion.
Is there a way by which our citizens, some of whom may be watching
Yes.
this, are going to be able to at least monitor, if not also participate in that process?
Yep, exactly. That's a great question. So this is we're going to be running a newer process that we've, in the last 2 years between MnDOT and St. Louis County, we've been kind of building. And it's a very rigorous public engagement process. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to be proposing 3 stakeholder groups. The first one will be the general public. The second will be businesses. And the third will be the local agencies. So city staff, city council, police department, EMS, East Range Police Department, Aurora East Wasabi School. So the agencies will be part of that. And also ARDC. And actually also it's hitting me as I'm talking here, the ATV Club will also be invited to that. So for 3 stakeholder groups, we're going to be engaging with each of those individually, and we're going to do 3 waves of engagement. So we're going to do, first wave is just listening. We're going to have a public meeting with all 3 of those stakeholder groups, and we're just going to say, we're doing a project, we're here to listen, what are the issues, what are your concerns, what are your visions for the corridor? I have ideas, but other people have ideas too. So we're just going to listen. The second wave of engagement is where we actually develop alternatives, feasible or plausible alternatives that could legitimately work. And we're going to bring those alternatives to those 3 stakeholder groups, have some more input. What do you think? Which ones do you think works better? Which one makes it works not as good? Maybe you have some concerns about this one, you really like that one. And the third wave of engagement, after we've heard that, plus we combine that or marry that with our engineering analysis, and we come back and say this is the recommended alternative. That'll be the third wave of engagement. We close the circle and say, folks, we've gone through the process. This is what we're recommending for the corridor layout. And at the end of the day, there will be a 2D map, in a sense, or layout of the road, in a kind of an engineering drawing that folks can look at and say, this is what we're going to build. And then the county's going to take that 2D layout, bring it back, and our internal staff is going to design that into an actual construction plan in 2025. Late 2025, we're going to bid that for construction, and then 2026 for construction.
Councilor Hess, you know a lot about these matters. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
We kind of started some of that already here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the city did put together a team of people who are stakeholders in the area. We walked it all, did a map of ideas and concerns that we had from a municipal standpoint. We did meet with the county already with their engineers and kind of went through that. They stressed their things. So we've already begun this process. Another thing I do want to stress to the public is that Representative Lizagard and the state legislature gave us $600,000 in downtown beautification monies that we have in hand already that we are going to sit on specifically for this project. We don't want to give them out now when we don't know exactly what we're doing to downtown and the Main Street. So if there's outdoor patios that are incorporated in there for, they could potentially purchase seating or awning or windows and things like that and tie that into it as well. So there's a lot of good things that are coming down the road here very soon.
Literally down the road.
Yeah. The other thing I'll just mention real quick, so this is really exciting to me because, first of all, we're doing a parking study, or actually we just started that process. We're going to do an October count, a February count, and a March count. So we're going to have 3 different windows that we're going to look at for the parking studies. We'll start at First Street right here, wrap around Main Street down to Central Avenue, so kind of the downtown piece. So we're going to have that parking study data available to us. We're going to do a midday weekday, or sorry, a weekday midday, a weekday evening, and a weekend midday. So try to get those 3 different types of times a day that folks do different things. We'll get those patterns established. October, no snow. February, kind of peak of snow. Actually, not March, May. May will be just, snow hopefully will be melted by then. But we'll have that data. The other thing to mention, of course, I think you all know this, but it's the Superior National Forest Scenic Byway. We're going to be really advocating that and bringing those folks in from that committee of sorts. We want to make sure that we're reflecting and being responsive to the Superior National Forest Scenic Byway. And then lastly, in terms of downtown, this is kind of a once-in-a-generation. I'm going to be saying this multiple times through this whole process. It's going to be kind of a once-in-a-generation thing for the city of Aurora to say what kind of downtown do we want for the next 30 years? This is the opportunity, folks, and the ship is going to sail in 2025. But we literally have a blank slate, and we're going to be looking at a whole bunch of different things. There's a lot of right-of-way in downtown. We could do some really interesting and I think impactful things. It's really like an opportunity for a brand new downtown for the public. So, with everything that's happening regionally, I think this is going to be a really fun project.
2 things I can think of. One, be sure to talk with the snowplow operators.
Oh, yeah.
I think there was some question as to whether that's always been taken into consideration in other communities. The second one, just to clarify, my understanding was that the $3 million that came from the state legislature this year is additional to about $3 million that the county already had committed for the project. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the county already committed, it was like $2 or $3 million, just out of our program funds. So it's just money that we have regular revenue streams coming to the county for road construction. If we didn't get the legislature earmark, we would have used what's called municipal state aid funds. And those funds can only be used on county state aid highways for non-state aid cities, which means cities that are under 5,000 population. So Aurora, Ely, Chisholm, Evelyn, these types of cities, right? We can only use those MSA funds on county state aid highways near cities. So we would have used those funds, but now that we have that legislative earmark, we kind of offset that quite a bit.
So the pot is bigger as a result of it. Okay, just wanted to make.
The other thing I'll just have to mention real quick too, just so you know, it's all interconnected, right? We're doing a significant project over in the city of Evelyn with the Rock Ridge School District, and that is going to likely be sucking up some or most of our MSA funds for 2025, 2026, 2027, which is why we're very fortunate to have this legislative earmark.
Josh and I listened to the presentation of that to the House Capital Investment Committee.
All right, thank you very much.
I got one question.
Yes.
About, we've been working with the railroad for that railroad crossing.
Yeah, that's actually one of the focus items of the RFP. So we're telling our consultant it's the downtown stuff. We got a problem with that railroad crossing. It's a continuous problem. We have some other issues down along the cemetery. So yes, it's everything you can think of along Casale and 100, we're touching.
All right, councilors, any further questions? I don't believe there's a motion on the table yet to adopt this.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution
All right.
2023-39.
Moved as support.
I'll support.
Moved and supported. Further discussion? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution's adopted. Thanks very much. It's glad we had this get acquainted kind of
Perfect, yeah. We'll be
opportunity.
Lots of more meetings coming up.
Yes,
in the
I'm
next 2 years.
sensing that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to agenda item 17.2, proposed resolution 2023-41 regarding the Ehlers Investment Advisors. The city administrator?
Yeah, you guys heard the presentation. Really just whatever your temperature is on this right now, if you guys want to take the packets and go home and read them and just take some time, we can certainly table it and come back on the 17th. We can have a special council meeting and have just, we can do it virtually with a couple of them, and then you can ask more questions virtually on a special meeting, so it's not so time constrained. There's not a rush for this, but they did include some of those funds into our financial management plan. So I think the desire is there. I just don't, I want to feel you guys don't know what your timetable is and what you're thinking.
When I was talking with the city administrator before, we discussed some due diligence maybe that might not have been able to be done yet as to experiences some of the other municipal clients of the firm and so on. And so I'm kind of inclined both to digest the new information we got today and to enable that additional due diligence to go. I appreciated the comments that came from Baylor today, but I personally am not going to take final action on this. I welcome the opportunity to table it until we get that additional.
I'll make a motion to table it.
Motion to table, is there support?
I'll support it.
Okay, Councilor Godey will support. Any further discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so that matters. Tabled as a city administrator.
So just that, I welcome some feedback from you guys. I definitely, one thing that I thought I'd like to call some other municipalities that use them. Maybe someone who's used them for a long time, some reference checks on it. Would you want to see a special meeting with them virtually? I mean, to ask more questions, or do you feel like coming back on the 17th is fine? I'll leave that up to you.
I think the 17th.
Based on what information you get from others that have used,
Yeah.
I think that I could make a decision comfortably.
Okay. All right, I'll just report back on the 17th and what I've heard from some. And I'll actually invite them virtually too, so we got more questions.
Yeah.
I will not be here on the 17th, I don't think, but it'll be fine.
Okay.
Did everybody just make sure they got a copy of the contract?
Yep.
I mean, there was the policy and things like that,
Yep.
but just so everybody's got a copy of the contract.
And you'll go through the arbitration
Yeah.
thing with the fine tooth comb? Thank you.
Yeah, we don't like
That's,
arbitration.
I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, so I guess depending on what Mike and I come up with in 2 weeks too, with that, we'll also bring that through. You guys all do have copies of all of that with you right now, and then we'll include that in the packet too. So.
If we do have questions of Ehlers, do you want us to go through you or directly to like Matt?
Yeah, go through me, and then I'm going to invite them here on the 17th. I don't think they need to be here in person because they're from Minneapolis, but I'll get a link virtually, and they can be here to answer anything then. But if you have anything beforehand, just funnel it through me, and that way there's just one person going back and forth.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Could you give me a copy of the contract, just make sure I've got exactly what everybody else has got?
Yep.
All right, I believe we tabled that matter, and I'm assuming 17.3, we should table that too.
17.3 will be tabled.
Yep.
Yep.
Make a motion to table
So
17.
moved by Councilor Hess.
I'll support.
Supported by Councilor Hawkla. Any further discussion on that? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That matter is tabled to go along with that. 17.4, the Tri-City ambulance agreement. Just two points of clarification when I was speaking with the city administrator. One on the summary page there, I just wanted received assurances that the proposed contract wasn't going to really increase $200 each month, but instead be $200 per month, so it would be a $2,400 per year increase. That's correct, City Administrator?
For 24,
Okay. Just a little odd wording there. And then the other, if we do move to adopt the proposed agreement, there's in paragraph 11, I believe the reference is to January 1st, 22. It would probably be January 1st of 24. So a correction there. So for purposes of discussion, we have a motion to approve the proposed resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Support?
I'll support it.
Councilor Godey supports. Now, discussion on this obviously affects an issue. I know Councilor Honka, you were referring to it. earlier, I believe, in your remarks, weren't you? Or am I imagining?
I didn't make any remarks regarding the Tri-City ambulance. I made
I
other remarks,
apologize.
though.
Yes.
I think they were clear.
Well, I think your general remarks are always helpful.
So just so the public is aware, for 2024, it will go up $1,200 in addition to what we currently pay,
So-
correct?
So it'll go up $200 a month, to 24
For the-
a month.
$400.
24, oh yes,
Yeah.
24 for the year, in addition to what we already pay.
Correct.
Right.
And to have that televised, what is that amount?
It's 1,000 a month.
1,000 a month.
Yep.
That will be with the increase.
Yes, that's good. That total cost per month is 1,000, and then in
Just so the
2025,
public is clear on that amount.
total cost in 25 would be 1,200.
Yes, because it'll go up to 100 more, yes.
Yep.
That's the same as it was set up for 2 years ago, that same increments were set up then. So,
We had an initial contract that was proposed in 2021, or 2022, 2023, for 600, 800, 1,000, 1,200. Both, because Town of White is involved with this too, public should know that. So Town of White and Aurora both wanted to just do a 2-year contract to see what had happened. So we did the 600 and 800 a month. Now we've just gone back to that same original contract and we're just doing the 1,000, 1,200, 24 and 25 respectively. In the meantime, they're still working towards a district. Richard can speak on it too if he'd like, but they do have a consultant that they're trying to get to come in to look at what it would cost for a flat fee per household in the whole ambulance district.
When we had the arranged mayor's meeting last week, Towers mayor and hot heads nodded from other mayors that were there, is working with Senator Hochschild and to draft some proposed legislation because the problems we're encountering seem to be common in greater Minnesota. I don't know so much in the metropolitan area, but in the greater Minnesota area. So I think one of the things, in addition, like the service district, that we should be having on our radar screen is working to benefit from or in support any progressive legislation that could come up to address the common problem.
well, both of them are going to have to work hand in hand, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's the district isn't interesting for a variety of reasons, right?
Well, because you get Bassett and all these places out there that are paying nothing into it when their usage is.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, the federal government would wake up and improve the Medicare reimbursement rates, but that's probably not going to happen. So, let's see. We have before us then a proposed joint and cooperative agreement. Is there
I'll make a motion to approve the Tri-City ambulance agreement.
all right.
I think we already have a motion on.
Oh, who was it?
Yep, Richard and
Richard.
Dan.
And Dan, okay,
Yep.
sorry.
Yeah, that's right. We did it for discussion purposes, and we've had the discussion.
Discussion purposes.
I threw you off your game.
No, I'm there, I wasn't on it.
It's good. All right, any further discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'd like to make one comment, and that's about the Hot Lake ambulance. We're really lucky to have ambulance so close. You know, and they do a good job.
I'm sure you won't get any argument on that from any of the councilors here, and the audience should be appreciating it. Moving on to 17.5, ARPA funds, franchise fees. I don't think I had anything in my package. Did anything else?
Would you like mine?
Okay.
There you go.
City Administrator, do you want to fill us
So
in?
this, we're already moving forward with this. The total cost is a cost not to exceed $3,500. This takes a really long time to get going and get in place. So I already told Ellers, let's go ahead and move forward with it. It's something that they brought up with the financial management plan. A couple of things they're looking at is the franchise fee, raising it on the electrical end, maybe $1 per unit. And then also where we don't have a gas franchise fee in most places, it's common to have a gas and electric, not common to have just one, not the other. So this would include, they could come up when they present the second part of their financial management plan or their resolution to it, to try and save some costs, which I said was fine. But it's assistance requesting data from the utility companies, the fee analysis itself, assistance with drafting the ordinance, and then presenting the results to the council. It does not include Mr. Carney's fees, and we'll of course want him to look at those as well. But all we're looking for from you is that we can use the ARPA funds for this, and we want to get it on record, and that up to $3,500 in ARPA funds will be expended. We'll have about $66,000 left that we have to spend by the end of 24, allocate by 24.
A nice problem to have. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the use of the ARPA funds for this purpose?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Joss.
I'll support.
Supported by Councilor Honkala. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you. ARPA fund use is approved. 17.5, Special Olympics gambling proceeds request. The only matter related to that, I pointed out to the city administrator, I believe, on our agenda memo, they're asking for us to make a donation to the Special Olympics of Aurora, not to White Lakes. Do you notice in the heading there? Kind
Yes.
of creates some confusion there. So,
We're not White Lakes today.
no,
Or tomorrow.
I believe that was a
Typo.
typo.
Well, there should be a comma after White Lakes. It's the Special Olympics of Aurora White Lakes.
Yeah, there we go. All right.
Yep.
So, let's see, now I believe our policy generally provides that the organization has to somehow be actually serving.
Yep, and they do serve the Aurora
So
area.
these are
Okay,
very-
all right, so we've got that cleared up. Is there a motion then to approve the proposed action there?
I'll make a motion on it, $500.
$500. All right, and there's support?
I'll support.
Councilor Joss
I'd like
supports?
for discussion, please.
All right, further discussion then.
Well, it's just a request within the 2711 Independent School District. I'm wondering if the 2711 Independent School District also had a request for funds and if they gave any. But I am in support of that $500 motion. Just curious regarding that statement.
I have a feeling you're honing in on making sure they carry their.
Well, they should support
versions.
as
Yeah.
well as we do. I
Yep.
think it's a good,
Yeah. Absolutely great work. All right, further discussion on the motion? If not, there's a motion on the table to provide $500 a fund. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. 17.7, November regular meeting date.
that's on my election day.
Oh, yeah.
So we'd like to potentially move this to the 2nd, if it's possible. It was moved to the 9th, but the 9th might cause an issue with us paying some bills on time, so we'd like to try and do it on the 2nd, Thursday the 2nd.
I've been under the impression it's always a problem for the administrative staff.
I survived today, and it was only the second day, well, the second working day of the month. It was actually my suggestion, because the 9th, that's where we set it. The next day is actually a holiday for us. The banks will not be open, we will not be open, checks will not get in the mail. Some of the bills going out that the council approves will then be late. We will incur some late fees. So I'm trying to avoid that.
All right, so is there a motion to approve holding a meeting on the 2nd?
So moved.
Moved, supported by Councilor Cody. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting date is changed. City Administrator, we have 17.8 is other. Any other matters to bring before the council?
I do not have any others.
It's good to have you back, by the way.
Yes.
After your travels. Councilors, any other matters to bring up? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Moved by Councilor Onkla, supported by Councilor Cody. Anticipating no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we stand adjourned until 17th, right? That's correct. Yeah.